Hey PCWorld fans, Adam here with Gordon. And at CES 2022, AMD finally revealed its Ryzen with Vcache part. It's the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D. It's just one part, and Gordon's going to go over the details of what that part is. But we got a lot of questions during our past videos of, Gordon, why is AMD not making a Ryzen 9 5950X? Or, Gordon, why isn't AMD making a Ryzen 5 5600X 3D? So, Gordon, first, go over the 5800X 3D. Tell me what it is and why it's exciting.
So what we're getting is the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, 8-core, 16-thread, 4.5 gigahertz boost, 32 megs of 2D cache, and 64 megabytes of Vcache. That is cache that is stacked on top of the processor. Super fast over what we've seen previously and sort of extra cache versions. Basically gives it the equivalent of 96 megabytes of L3 cache, 105 TDP, works in AMD 400 series and 500 series motherboards, but we saw no other ones. We're not seeing a Ryzen 5 5600X 3D. We're not seeing a Ryzen 9 5950X 3D or the 12-core Ryzen 9 5900X 3D, and people are incensed.
Gordon, why would they not do that?
Yeah, so you can go back and check out a video we just did with AMD's Robert Halleck and Frank Azor talking about why they decided only at this point to put Vcache on one 8-core chip. I know a lot of people assume it's only one thing, but there are many reasons. It looks like it's because, no surprise, CPUs are designed to make a business money. They basically are making a CPU aimed solely at gamers because AMD has said, you know what? This cache thing works great for games. In fact, for the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D with the Vcache, AMD says it's actually the world's fastest gaming CPU. That's a big deal because what they're saying is the Ryzen 7 will be faster in gaming and tied with Intel's far more expensive Core i9 12900K Alder Lake chip.
Wow.
Right. So basically they're saying the cache really does great things for games. Maybe not help some of the other applications you're going to use, say like Photoshop or Chrome or Word, where you might need all that performance. So they're putting it on one part that's going to help gamers the most. They think that's the chip that gamers will want. The single CCD, because remember, the AMD Ryzens are made up of multiple chips for the Ryzen 9s. So the Ryzen 9s do two CCDs. They have two 8-core or two 6-core CCDs. The Ryzen 7 8-core is a single 8-core CCD. And of course, people are like, well, why not just stack that cache onto those other ones? Won't that help those too? Maybe a little bit, but AMD has sort of looked at some of the math and they said, well, we think the best game right now is on this part because remember, this cache stacked directly on top of that CPU die. It means it doesn't have to go that far. If you have cache on one die here, you have cache on one die here. If this one has to get to the other one, now you have an extra length to go to. You sort of eat that extra latency. It's probably not worth it. Of course, they haven't said they'll never do it, but my guess is they sort of see the opportunity to make the world's best gaming CPU in this sole part.
Yeah, but the 5600X is just one CCD, so that doesn't apply there. So why not make a 5600X 3D?
Yeah, so that's a good argument. I would probably say, well, this analogy works really well. When I pay for my airline ticket, I don't get to board because I buy the cheap seat because my company doesn't let me fly first class. I don't get on board with first class. Generally, companies want to make money. If they put this, remember, this is a brand new TSMC stacked die technology. It's not cheap. You're adding cost to a CPU. So you want to make a little more money because you now have to pay for the cache you are stacking on that. Ryzen 5 5600 is lower price than the Ryzen 7 5800. If you add it there and you don't have it on the 5800, you're probably not going to make the money back. So this really looks like mostly a business decision because you can't buy the cheap thing and expect the very best service as an option. Generally, you're going to have to pay a little more. That's kind of the world we live in. I get the feeling that's what they're doing here. Ryzen 7 5800X 3D is, again, more expensive than 5600, the Ryzen 5, but doesn't go all the way as far as the Ryzen 9. So it's mostly a business decision.
Okay.
But again, they have to be able to charge enough, but also charge less than Intel's Core i9 because they really want to knock off that Core i9 because they know everybody's motivating. When you go to the store, that person in that blue shirt, there's some blue on here somewhere, they tell you, look, this is the world's best gaming CPU. And you're going to be like, hold on, that's enough. Give me that one. That's what works on people, and that's what they're doing with this.
All right. So, but you're saying with the 5950X, there might be a technical limitation. With the 5600X, it's not necessarily a technical decision, so it's probably more likely if they were to bring another 3D part that would be 5600X?
I suppose when I go to the airport, I might be able to sneak in with first class. I don't think that's going to happen. When you see first class gets on that plane, they make you wait intentionally 5 minutes just to make you feel worse because you didn't pay for it. Generally, you can't pay for the seats all the way at the top of the stadium and expect to sit in the front row. That's just the world that way. I mean, maybe AMD is going to go like, yeah, we want to give this to everybody and not make any money too, but generally they like to make money because that's how they pay for new things. So I don't think so. Maybe if they do it, possibly. Maybe. We'll see. I think we're going to see. I think this part, if they can pull it off and like be the world's best gaming CPU, world's fastest gaming CPU, that itself is worth it just to be there.
All right. And the last question I have is, does this mean that you think when AM5 comes out with the Ryzen 6000, whatever it's going to be called, that will be all Vcache across the whole line? Is Vcache here to stay across everything?
I think it's clear that AMD makes its decisions on CPUs, everything from process to packaging to how many cores, how many parts. They base that on what makes the most sense based on the landscape that they launch in. So I think we really have to see where it's an option they're going to keep in the toolbox. Whether they can afford to use that tool in the toolbox or whether it makes sense to use that toolbox will depend very much on where Intel is in the second half of this year. Zen 4 comes out second half this year. Intel supposedly says we got Raptor Lake, our could be 13th gen CPU running Windows already. So it may or may not make sense to have a Vcache version of Zen 4, or maybe it makes sense to have a Vcache version of Zen 5. We don't know yet. It's clear nobody knows except for AMD, and it's possible they don't even know yet because they don't know what Intel's doing.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for letting me know why there's no 3D Vcache on the 5600X or the 5950X. It doesn't make me less angry that they're not doing it. But
yes.
You
You should
got
have
one.
checked in the night before instead of boarding at the end like me on Southwest. But then I would have to have woken up early to check in with everyone.
True. All right. Cool. Well, thank you, Gordon. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more of these fun PC videos. We'll talk to you later.
It is exactly like that. Ryzen 5, you're in Group E. How could I be in Group E?